We've got 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets, you guys. It is time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of Regan's Newsround, where I cover several different stories in one video for you guys. The date and time of this recording is the 8th of August at around 8 a.m. UK time, and we start here with our article from The Guardian with the headline that ditching the 2-child benefit cap would cut deaths and AE emissions, a study says. England's research shows huge benefits with resulting savings for the NHS and councils. And guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video as well. Without a doubt, everyone knows that the 2-child benefit cap must go. Everyone knows it needs to go. But that's those who obviously pay attention to the details. However, polling suggests differently, and we talked about this before, especially when it came back to the voting on this. The majority of voters out there want to keep the 2-child benefit cap. And the mindset that they've been put in their heads is all about the whole benefit Britain, everyone sitting on benefits, not doing anything with their lives, yada, yada, yada. That kind of mindset is embedded on people. That's the thing. Even though it would be beneficial to everyone if the 2-child benefit cap was lifted. And the fact that it would cut deaths and AE admissions, which a study says as well, we know that it will save lives, and we know it would help increase the birth rate, because one of the things downpours is obviously the 2-child benefit cap has been putting people off from having children. If you have more than 2 kids, you get no more money from the government for support that. So why have more than 2 kids? So that's obviously not helping the birth rate as well. And people talk about wanting more British jobs for British people and all that malarkey. Well, it ain't going to help you by having this 2-child benefit cap. It's not helping. It's not helping. It's not helping our birth rate. People want more British jobs for British workers. They want to rely on, when our birth rate is not going in the right direction right now. Although it's not severe, it's still problematic. It is definitely a cause for concern. And without a shadow of a doubt, needs to go. So why hasn't it gone, Regan? Well, the reason it hasn't gone is that Labour want to show that they are physical responsibility when it comes to managing the economy, when it comes to managing the budget, when it comes to looking after the money. They want to show that they have physical responsibility, and that their way of showing it is that we're not going to remove this 2-child benefit cap without showing where we're going to get the money from. Now, obviously, one of the things that many people are kind of eyeing up is obviously the budget at the end of October, and whether or not the budget there will that be the thing that the 2-child benefit cap will be removed then. And even though it is only a few months away to October at the time of this recording, it's still like, for many people, understandably, and I understand that frustration, why are we not getting rid of it now? Well, like I said, they want to show that they are careful with the money's purse. They're not going to be careless like Liz Truss. That's the kind of mindset and premise that they have. But at the same time, by doing that, they're also killing people unintentionally by keeping this 2-child benefit cap as well, because it would lift so many people out of poverty as well, and that's another thing that's also needs to be highlighted as well. So let's read more into this guy. So curbing child poverty by scrapping the 2-child benefit cap would save hundreds of lives a year and avoid thousands of admissions to hospital, the largest study of its kind suggests. So Keir Starmer has faced repeated demands from within Labour ranks and opposition leaders to abolish the policy, which was announced in 2015 by George Osborne, the then Chancellor. Almost half of all children in some towns and cities now live below the breadline. Now, researchers at the University of Glasgow, Liverpool and Newcastle have shown for the first time the extraordinary impact that reducing child poverty with measures such as ditching the two-child benefit cap could have in England. Tackling it would substantially cut the number of infant deaths and children in care, as well as the rates of childhood and nutritional anemia and emergency admissions, with most deprived regions, especially in the North East England, likely to benefit the most, the projections indicate. Changes were likely to have a huge beneficial knock-on effect on local authorities and the NHS, the research concluded. The findings were published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. The two-child limit was announced in 2015 by the Conservatives and came into effect in 2017 and restricts child tax credit and universal credit to the first two children in most households. Using local authority level data, researchers modelled the effect of different reductions in child poverty over the next decade. And it says that their scenarios of 15%, 25% and 35% in reduction in poverty were considered to be realistic in the light of the 25% fall in prevalence previously observed in the UK between 1997 and 2010. That's under the previous Labour government. All reduction scenarios will result in substantial improvements to child health between now and 2033, they said. An ambitious but realistic reduction of 35% on 2023 levels will be expected to result in avoidance of a total of 293 infant deaths. Avoiding that many deaths. 4,696 children entering care, 458 childhood admissions with nutritional amnesties, and 32,650 childhood emergency administrations, the researchers said. Obviously, this is a study that they've looked into this as well, so it's a choice of whether you want to take it on board or not. And they added the reductions would likely translate into significant savings for and relieve pressure on local authorities in relation to children looked after and health services. Benefits are likely to be greater in the most disadvantaged area, helping efforts to levelling up. Other health impacts that we may not have been able to qualify are also less likely. The researchers concluded that if policymakers were to set and achieve child poverty targets in England, for example, through suggested measures such as removing the two-child limit and benefit cap, this would likely improve a child's health, particularly among the most socio-economically disadvantaged, and levelling up regional inequalities. The latest official UK figures published earlier this year show an estimated 4.33 million children in households in relatively low income after housing costs in the year to March 2023, a record high. The new research estimates that northern parts of England exhibit the greatest relative and absolute benefit from child poverty reductions. Government spokesperson said that no child should be in poverty, and that's why our new cross-government task force will develop an ambitious child poverty strategy to tackle the crisis. Alongside this urgent work, we will roll out free breakfast clubs in all primary schools while delivering on our plan to grow the economy and make work pay for the hard-working families in every part of the country. We do want to get people off benefits and back into work, but we also need to help people, those in need of it. The sooner the two-child benefit cap goes, the better. But I understand the argument from people from Labour to say they want to show physical responsibility. But I understand that point. I understand that argument, and you can make that argument all you want. But every day that two-child cap is in, children are suffering, children are starving, children are dying, and parents are worse off. It's a struggle for people every single day, and for some people, they're not going to make it. And that's just the cold, harsh reality. So sometimes it's about forget the physical responsibility. It's about doing what's right. Sometimes it's about just doing what's right. And on this, I understand. I really wish that they had put this in their manifesto right at the start of the election. It would have benefited a lot of people. Next one I got for you guys is an article from Sky News. The headline is: the Chancellor eyes a Canada-style pension reform to drive UK investment. So Rachel Reeves says she wants to learn lessons from Canada's model to help fire up the UK economy, and it comes after she launched a review into pension sector last month. So I don't know too much about the Canada-style pensions, but obviously she's looking at other countries, and rightfully so, about some of the ideas and means that they do to drive to drive investment. And obviously, at the moment, considering our hands are tied at the moment with certain things such as Brexit, we have to look at other things as well. But let's read a bit more into this, you guys, because I don't know enough about Canada's pensions. So perhaps we will be enlightened on this one. So the Chancellor has confirmed that she's considering plans to consolidate local government pension schemes and use some of their £360 billion of resources to invest in the economy. Rachel Reeves says she was interested in following the example of Canada, where pension funds are used to invest heavily in infrastructure projects to help drive growth. And it comes after Sky News revealed that the Chancellor would be meeting with a group of Canadian retirement funds in Toronto during a 3-day trip to North America this week. Currently, local government pensions in England and Wales are fragmented into 86 individual funds across about 6 million members. Ms. Reeves says the size of Canadian pension schemes means that they can invest far more in productive assets like vital infrastructure, and then ours will do. I want British schemes to learn lessons from the Canadian model and fire up the UK economy. This would deliver better returns for savers and unlock billions of pounds of investment. We've already beginning to see schemes announce plans to invest. There's a vote of confidence in our works to fix the foundations of the economy and rebuild Britain and make every part of our country better. Now, someone will need to explain in the comments, but are we talking about putting British pensioners at risk here with this using these for investment? That's how it just seems to have come across to me. Ms. Reeves previously announced a review into the pension sector and that the push to drive economic growth was also a key message of the King's speech. The Chancellor expects to set out further details of her pension plans in the first Mansion House address. Investment firms including Legal and General, Aviva and Phoenix have welcomed the industry's review, which was launched in July. I don't really want my pension put at risk, if I'm honest. I like, for me, it's like if there is consent from people's pensions that they can be used to this, then okay. But I don't want this being. I don't want my pensions, for example, like being put at risk on this, to help drive in UK investment. I'm a little bit coy about this idea, if I'm honest, guys. Not really a lot of information from on this from Sky News, I have to say. Of course we want to drive investment, but I'm not sure about this idea. I'm not sure about the use of people's pensions to help fire up the UK economy. I just don't think it's a good idea from my view. It doesn't feel right to me. I think pensions should be left alone, if I'm honest. I think they should be left alone, if I'm honest. But I don't know enough about this. But what I will say is that I'm very skeptical about an idea like this, and I think we should stick to obviously trying to bring in investment from abroad, bringing in a foreign investment, rather than obviously trying to dip into pockets of people who are already here in the UK and their pensions in order to drive investment. Like I said, if people are happy to put consent to it, then they're fine. But if people don't have that consent, that's another white flag that for me on that one. That's for sure. The next one I got for you guys is from the BBC. Now, obviously, a lot has happened since the riots, but I think I've got another story a little bit further on for you guys as well. So the headline is Refugee Charities Close for Safety Following the Riots. So at the time of this recording, this has been recorded, as a reminder, this is being recorded on Thursday morning. Now on Wednesday night, and I'll talk a bit about this in another article in a bit, but it was very quiet. It was very quiet for the fascists last night. There wasn't so much of them. There was a lot of anti-fascist gatherings in pretty much most parts of where they were supposed to be turning up. The police did not have any trouble last night. It's pretty much been quashed. At least last night it was, which was Wednesday night. Now, obviously, I can't speak for Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night at the time of this recording. But I did speculate, and I have speculated that it is potentially possible that they may come back on the weekend to try and stir things up again. I don't know if they will or not. Obviously, time will tell, but obviously refugee charities are obviously just trying to do their job, trying to help those in need, especially those who are fled other countries and that. Like they've obviously been targeted by some of these onliners as well, which is very, very scary for them, because at the end of the day they're just trying to help people. And obviously people's mindsets is that all their problems in their lives are all down to immigrants, which we all know is not. Not every, there are immigration is a factor in our society on some things, but it is not the be all to end all of everything that's going on in the UK. And I think that's really important to highlight. So refugee charities are offering support to migrants while at the same time taking action to keep themselves safe during the ongoing unrest. So some organisations and firms have said the words immigration or asylum in their names, said they were worried by rumours that they may be targeted. A Newcastle lawyer said he had shut his office while a North East England charity temporarily closed its doors and cancelled events for asylum seekers. Yeah, because at the time, obviously, and I have to stress this, guys, but at the time, obviously, all this, they were very much like, even with the police saying that they would protect mosques, protect refugees and all that kind of stuff, people still didn't feel safe at the time. And I think that's really, really important. It's really, really important to highlight that they didn't feel safe, and they want to help asylum seekers out. But if they set up an event to bring them in, and they become targeted by these far right thugs and dangerous people, then obviously it's not worth the risk for them. We don't want to put anyone at extra risk, a worker at the organisation has said, and rightfully so. We don't like I said, don't want to put anyone at risk. The charity, which asked not to be named, said volunteers had faced I hope I haven't gone out for too long. The unrest and abuse brings back the experience. So I'll just repeat it again, just for those. Residents in Sunderland took to the streets on Saturday to clean up the city. Young lads here, obviously, doing their part, which is really, really nice. I really hope I haven't missed too much now. I'll be really upset. The unrest and abuse brings back the experience people have had in other countries on their way to England, he added. However, the charity said that most people knew the riots had been carried out by a minority, and not only ordinarily decent people, but came in across their daily lives. Spokesperson for the Home Office said all asylum seeker accommodation sites had security staff and was continually reviewing their security with providers. Northumbria Police Assistant Chief Constable Andrew Hill said, "We know there will be members of the community who feel frightened and marginalised at this time." That's again at the time of this recording a few days ago, on like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for reference. "We're all here for you and we're committed to keep you safe." ACC Hill said a number of people have been arrested following disorder in Sunderland last week, and those convicted would likely receive considerable sentences. This should act as a warning to anyone with the intention of causing any further disorder. You will face the full force of the law. And it took, and I have another piece that I will talk about a bit later, but they really have it's taken a while for the police to kind of clamp down on this, but the government have, given the police the powers what they needed to get this under control. And it looks, and I'm crossing fingers, I'm hoping I'm not jinxing anything, it looks as if things have calmed down. But I could be wrong, and there may have been more further riots after this recording. I hope not. I really, really hope not. But obviously, refugee charities at the end of the day are just trying to do their jobs. They're trying to help people. They're trying to help vulnerable people in society who have gone through immense troubles, and they should not be targeted whatsoever. They should be left alone to be given the best opportunities they can in life. And their asylum application and whatnot needs to be processed and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, like I said, I don't think it's completely over yet, but hopefully it's all going in the right direction, and the police have control of this, and the government, as far have given everything that they needed to give, as far as I'm aware. So guys, if you haven't already, please hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. I'd like to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So anyone who has not subscribed, please subscribe. Doesn't cost anything to do so. Makes a massive difference. And if you hit the bell notification icon, you'll be notified whenever I go live or whenever I upload a video for you as well. So thank you to everyone and anyone who has done so. It is greatly appreciated. So moving away from the riots, guys, and we're going to an exclusive here from iNews. The headline reveals that the Ministry of Defence gives contractors 36 hours to find budget cuts. So by the time you see this, either they will have extended the deadline or the deadline has passed. But what is this all about? Well, let's read a bit into it. So the Admiral Lord West says the cuts are likely to hit military hardware, manpower and infrastructure after a leaked letter shows MOD was asking for savings. So I think this is obviously, this may have something to do with the £22 billion black hole, maybe something that Rachel Reeves was saying. And obviously people, I can see the opposition, such as the Conservatives, using this to say, oh, look, they said they were committed to defence spending, and here they are cutting the military budget, and that's exactly how they can paint it. And you can write, and they're right to paint it like that, because that's how it feels. I hate that they're doing all these cuts. Now Rachel Reeves is making all these cuts and is making this argument that to do it to fill this £22 billion black hole. Like I said, we don't know for certain. You can only take her word for it. And at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you want to take her word for it. And I can understand people not taking her word for it. I really, really can. But if I'm absolutely honest, I would rather take some of the cuts from our military than from like public services, which are already to the bare bone as it is, guys. So the Ministry of Defence has been given major suppliers only 36 hours to come up with ideas for immediate cuts and significant budget pressures, according to a confidential letter seen by the Eye. So in a letter sent out to defence contractors on Monday, senior civil servants at the MOD demanded companies come up with high-level headline ideas for cost saving within 36 hours, in which officials admit it was exceptionally tight turnaround. Contractors were told that the MOD needed to make material in-year savings, though the cancellation or deferral of lower priority activity or President's plans for efficiency savings as quickly as possible. The MOD letter states that ministers will need to make some hard choices to align this government's target spending of 2.5% of GDP on defence. Although the Prime Minister has set out his plans to raise defence spending to 2.5% of GDP per year, no date has been set. The letter seen by the Eye suggests that significant savings are needed for this financial year, with contractors asking what areas could be cut while preserving military capabilities. So they wanna. So the idea here. So they want to cut back on the military now, and then what? Invest back into it next year after the budget. Is that the plan? I think that's what they're trying to do. Anyway, that's at least the interpretation that I have from this. The decision-making process for any cuts is expected to continue throughout August. Reacting to the news, Admiral Lord West, who was First Sea Lord and Chief of Naval Staff between 2002 and 2006, told the Eye that the Ministry of Defence finances were in a poor position and the department faced a multi-billion-pound shortfall. Lord West told the Eye clearly the financial position is far worse than we were being told. And I was told under the previous government that there is a need to be 3 billion to 4 billion in financial year savings in the MOD, which is a huge amount. I was given this figure in March or April and tried to take the government to task, but they battered it into touch. In order to make these savings, issues like infrastructure spares and maintenance and training and recruitment power will need to be cut. Cutting the manpower is a very bad idea. It's already been cut as it is the manpower. So that's gonna give some negative headlines for this government as well. One supplier told the Eye that savings under consideration could include delaying the purchase of military hardware and kit, but also extend to the cancellation of some projects. I'm assuming none of this is affecting any military or support for Ukraine as well. They also described the fact that they had been given fewer than 2 days to suggest cuts as remarkable, as it was a sign of just how serious the budget pressures are. You can't do any clever accounting or anything similar in such a short period of time, one source told the Eye. While the government has recommended to ultimately increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, this will only be achieved in a number of years following a defence review, and the Prime Minister has refused to give a target date for hitting this figure. Lord West said the letter seen by the Eye asking suppliers for budget cuts was not a positive step towards hitting the 2.5%. Yeah, and that's the thing. The Tories can bash them with this, as well as other parties, and rightfully so. Labour has already cut some other policies across government, with Rachel Reeves announcing plans to scrap the winter fuel allowance for all pensioners last week. Yeah, she got quite a drubbing from that as well. Nick Davis, a programme director for the Institute of Government Think Tank, told the Eye that the plan demonstration the level of cuts public services are set to face in the coming months. I don't know about these public services, but obviously if that does happen, obviously it will be obviously people will be very mad. Mr. Davis said the Chancellor's recent public spending audit announced the pressures of £22 billion, but cuts of only 5.5 million and indicated that further savings will be announced in the autumn budget. Even making these initial cuts will be hard, and all departments will be assessing where in-year savings can be made, including from suppliers. However, the pressures from April 2025 onwards will be even greater and require making difficult trade-offs on borrowing, taxation and spending. The Ministry of Defence will clearly not be immune to such pressures, and the scale of the savings required are likely to mean that major capital projects will come under scrutiny as part of this review. A Ministry of Defence spokesperson said that the budget pressures, especially around defence equipment, had led to the government taking action. And last November, the National Audit Office (NAO) revealed that the government was facing a £17 billion funding gap for defence equipment over the next decade. According to the NAO, inflation had outpaced increased defence budgets, leading to the shortfall, adding £11 billion to the cost. A Ministry of Defence spokesperson said, as the Chancellor has said, the government has inherited public finances which are much worse than expected. The NAO will also confirm the largest ever deficit in the defence equipment plan. This government will secure Britain's defence for the future and increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP as soon as possible. With no timeline. So on the defence, they're going to basically leave that for a while, and people will literally be angry, whether we like it or not. People will get angry because of the simple fact that we're prioritizing Ukraine over our own military. That's the perception that will be made by the right wing and whatnot, and that's how it looks. Don't have to agree with it, but that's how it will look for some people. It's frustrating, but like I've said, I would rather they cut somewhere where it doesn't affect directly public services. But at the same time, some people are expecting major public service cuts. But we are getting tax increases in October when the Chancellor announces her budget. We know we're getting that. It's just a case of when, guys. It's just a case of when on that. But we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, I'll try to up-to-date you guys. I'm sure that I will have a story more on this as time passes on. So, guys, we're going to take a little break from some of the news. We've still got a couple of articles to cover here as we hit the half-an-hour mark. I've got a funny video here from Michael Spicer here. And basically interpreting Nigel Farage. The headline is a Nigel Farage story arc. So I hope you guys enjoy this one.
Well, I am delighted to be here today to take my seat at Westminster for the first time. I can't wait to get going. Me and my 4 colleagues are definitely going to shake up Westminster politics for good. There's no doubt about that. Okay, thank you. Wow. Well, obviously, I'm shocked and stunned that Richard Tice has had to stand down today after being heard using accidental, though unacceptable, racist language in the chamber this morning. Rest assured, though, the four of us that are left will carry on as normal, and we can't wait to get to work. Well. It is with deep sadness that I have to announce that Lee Anderson has stepped down this morning as a result of the frankly offensive and disgusting racial views that he aired on his own TV show. I did tell him not to do that. I told him not to. I'm annoyed with him, actually. But we carry on. There are 3 of us left, and we are going to keep fighting the good fight. Thank you. James McMurdoch has been to see me today to offer his resignation after these photos of him at a fancy dress party were discovered online. He wishes to make it known that he does not share the same views as the person he dressed up as. He feels that he has been victimised a little bit by the media. Nevertheless, he has gone. 2 of us left. Let's rock on. Okay, just me now. Rupert, whatever his name is very sorry that his Daily Mail article entitled "White Supremacy is a Historical Fact and People Must Accept It" was taken out of context. But I'm still here, and reform will continue. It is with deep sadness that I have decided to step down from reform. I didn't say anything racist, I just really hate Clacton. Well,
he doesn't often do political funny videos anymore, guys. But that was a good one there. I like they had the whole big nose sort of idea there as well. I thought that was pretty funny. To be fair, it's definitely funny. So, like I said, I had another one for you. So we're obviously going to be talking a little bit more about some of the riots, actually. I've got 2 back-to-back stories, actually, here for you guys. This first one here is actually from The Independent. So the headline is that the Tory councillor's wife who called for mass deportations and hotel fires arrested for inciting racial hatred. The former childminder, who is the wife of a Tory councillor, has been arrested for inciting hate. So the tweet that she made was absolutely abhorrent and disgusting. And the fact that she's been arrested for this raises a massive amount of eyebrows, and obviously it scares a lot of people online who've been trying to stir this up as well, because now they've been forced to kind of like backpedal and U-turn and all that kind of stuff, because now that someone's been arrested, and especially someone who is a wife of a Conservative councillor, yeah, that will bloody show them. And the fact that it's a Conservative councillor's wife, that will obviously not look good for those who were protecting their communities and that are staunch Conservative voters. If they found out about that, they certainly would not be very happy about that as well. But this also highlights as well that people who are trying to incite racial hatred online, this shows that you can't get away with it. That the police will track you down if you are from the UK, and they will track you down, and they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of footage and hours of footage, and tweets and social media content to look at. So they will be looking at lots and lots of stuff over the weeks, over the months. So they will be going after a lot of people. So people who have thought that they've had an easy ride last night, over the last several weeks and days, several days obviously over this, thinking that they'll be able to tweet this kind of stuff and get away with it. Don't be surprised to get a knock on the door, is what I will say. So the wife of a Tory councillor has been arrested for hate crime after she called for hotels with asylum seekers to set them to be ablaze. Lucy Conroy, 41, took to X, writing, "Mass deportation now, set fire to all the effing hotels, all full of thingies for all I care. If that makes me racist, so be it." So so first of all, she's admitted that she's a racist. That's the first thing. Second thing, she's called for a mass deportation of all of them. Thirdly, she's called to set fire to the hotel for them as well. So she's advocating violence, advocating to start fires, arsonist as well. And that's also deemed that's also deemed like murder, because you're literally calling for the killing of people. Yeah. You didn't really think about that, did you? So absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous tweets there for sure. She has since deleted the tweet and apologised, claiming she had acted on false and malicious information, but a number of people made complaints to the police about her allegedly inciting violence. Northamptonshire police confirmed on Tuesday night that a 41-year-old woman had been arrested on suspicion of inciting racial hatred and remains in custody. So this is Lucy Connolly there. The childminder posted these comments on her X account just hours after the fatal stabbing of 3 schoolgirls at a dance class on Southport on the 29th of July. At the time of the number of false claims and misinformation was being posted on the social media site from far-right groups, which led to a riot in the Seaside Resort. Among the false claims was that the murder suspect, Axel, was a Muslim immigrant, which he was not. And the full red post, full like care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them as well. Referring to the families of the girls of Stockport, she added, "I feel physically sick. What these families have had to endure. If that makes me a racist, so be it." Miss Connolly is married to Tory Northamptonshire councillor Raymond Colliery, who is vice chairman of the Committee on Adult Social Care at West Northamptonshire Council. I think he should step down from that. He told the BBC his wife made a stupid splur of the moment tweet out of frustration and quickly deleted it. She is a good person and she's not racist, she said. Okay. She's a good person, she's not racist, he says. And here she is saying, if that makes me racist, so be it. Okay, sure. She got Somalian and Bangladeshi kids she looks after, and she loves them like they're her own. So why does she, well, the thing is that there's a saying I like to use, guys, and it's called think before you tweet. You should try using that. In another post on Tuesday evening, Miss Connolly said, "I am someone who cares enormously about the children, and the similarities between those beautiful children who were brutally attacked and my own daughter overwhelmed me with horror, but I should never express that horror in the way I did. This has been an invaluable lesson for me, realising how wrong and inaccurate things appearing on social media can be. It's been reported more than 400 people have been arrested over the alleged involvement in the far-right riots." Like, this is the thing, I understand the frustration and the hatred of what happened at Southport. I really do. But you've got to think and not jump to conclusions. And that's exactly what she did. And she has to pay for that because her tweet incentivized people to do that. Whether she meant intent or not. Police are bracing themselves for more protests on Wednesday, targeting immigration centres and asylum lawyers. Conservative Party source said Miss Conaway is not a party member. Yeah, like I said already I've already said on the riots about that. But okay, she's not a party member, but still, it's still a stain on the Conservatives nonetheless, because they are linked to it. They are linked to a Tory councillor's wife here, so you can't get out of that predicament there. So I do think the husband, while he of course is obviously a lot more level-headed, shall we say, with his tweets. That's if he tweets at all. It still doesn't change the fact that they were put out there. Still doesn't change that. So more on this stuff, guys. This is from Open Democracy. It's a feature here called "The Graceful Replacement and Boogaloo: The Ideology Driving the Modern Far Right." As Islamophobic and racist violence grip the UK, which at the moment appears to be calm, time will tell. We look at the modern far-right beliefs and racist aims here. This this is an anti-immigration protester wearing a Union Jack mask in Rotherham. So every Saturday night throughout the summer, young people gather in Bristol Historic Castle Park to sit on blankets under the cherry and blossom trees, eating ice cream and drinking from cans and reggae dub, and drum and bass rattle through tiny speakers. New music competes with the squeeze of the city seagulls, the raw traffic lead the gallery's moles with the shimmer of guitar, teenagers trying out circus skills, while bikes whiz along the river towards the bars and clubs of the old market. Last weekend, the scenes were very different. Gangs of far-right race rioters stormed the park, passing its ceremonial plague plaque to the city's anti-fascists who fought in Spain in the 1930s. They were joined by those pulled into the far right via a toxic mix of anti-vax, anti-LGBTQ, QAnon conspiracy theories, punches thrown at a black passerby, counter-protesters that insist that fascists and racists were not welcome here, before moving south to a river to form a human barrier around the hotel housing migrants, in which the mob attempted to attack. The scenes in Bristol were repeated across the country. In Rotherham and Tamworth, people who had fled violence and persecution of their own countries hid in hotel rooms as the buildings were set on fire. Asian men were dragged from their cabs to shouts of "kill him," while Syrian shopkeepers determined to build a new way of life from dictatorship and civil war watched in despair as their business was trashed. By Sunday night, more than 90 people had been arrested, but the violence did not stop spreading to city, to Liverpool and Belfast and Plymouth and London and beyond. The inciting incident was obscurity and the tragic killing of 3 girls and the stabbing of other women and girls at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport. The British-born teenager Axel had been charged with murder and attempted murder. The horrific deaths of 3 children had nothing to do with the terrorising of asylum-seeking people and children in the hotels, the destruction of black and brown people's businesses, or the attack on mosques. The street violence had gripped much of England and Northern Ireland since the 30th of July. Instead tells the story of a modern far right who are, how they organise, what they believe, and the coalition of hard right politicians, commentators and influencers who have empowered this hateful moment to inflict widespread violence against families fleeing fear. In the early days of the violence were met with suggestions from the new Labour government that the English Defence League could be designated as a proscribed group, one that is forbidden under UK law due to terrorist connections. But the suggestion fails to understand that 2 crucial issues. The first is that the EDFL does not really exist. Its co-founder and most famous member, far-right activist and convicted criminal Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yackley Lennon, left in 2013, claiming he had concerns over the dangers of far-right extremism, after which the group's membership dwindled until it ultimately became defunded a few years later. The second is that the modern far right is no longer made up of organisations with clear hierarchical structures. Instead, it is an international and online networking movement. It organises around a shared ideology spear by a core of furious leaders and influencers who use their power to put out statements designed to trigger others into committing violence. In this, the influencers commit what is known as stochastic or random violence, while of course making sure that they are not the ones throwing the punches and smashing the glasses themselves, and can claim plausible deniability when it comes to incitement. Exactly. It's, like I said, those who set the chess pieces, those who are dangling the carrots in front of them, those who are incentivizing it with their words, they are the ones that need to face accountability. They really, really do on this, because it's not enough for just those who are not enough for me personally. It's not enough for those who are causing the violence. It's those who pushed the narratives need to face that as well. If you hear a cat in the background, don't worry, Jasper's fine, guys. The movement breaks into a real world with violence, racial outbursts, and attacks. That violence is filmed and live streamed across the network, with each action used to tell the story that will inspire new followers and crucially influence non-members by creating an atmosphere of insecurity and fear. Following the killing in Southport, an online conspiracy claimed that the killer was a Muslim man who had arrived in the UK illegally on a small boat last year. The lie brought forward by 2 tropes driven the modern far right. Islamophobic claims that Muslim men pose a threat to women and girls, and manufactured outrage over fighting-age men arriving in the UK on small boats to live off the taxpayer. While the false claim about Southport's killings was specific to that incident, the disinformation being shared was built on years of far-right influencers engaging in ritual violence against primarily Muslim migrant people. Numerous posts from Robinson's Telegram channel, for example, discuss how migrant men who inevitably go on to rape and murder are invading the UK and taken in and housed in hotels at taxpayers' expenses. Governments and NGOSs are even accused of him of using little girls to encourage fighting-age men to come to UK who see nothing wrong in diddling kids. And these messages have gathered pace over the past 4 years, and the former Conservative government ramped up messaging to stop the boats and accused migrant people of abusing the system while being child rapists and threats to national security in the same time period. growing anti-immigrant rhetoric, and a failing policy to house asylum-seeking people in hotels have repeatedly triggered real-life violence and intimidation, mainly outside the hotels housing families. Yeah, this was also the Conservatives ramped up this as well, because they were consistently barking about this, and people were getting, and those in those areas who were seeing the hotels and whatnot, it was playing into their mindsets and making them feel angry and frustrated. And yeah, there were instances of people gathering outside these hotels and whatnot, and wanting them, screaming at them to basically go back to their country. When the reality is that the numbers could have been reduced if the Home Office had done its bloody job and actually cleared the backlogs. Citizen journalists who made their names as migrant hunters, such as Amanda Smith, who used her social media avatar Yorkshire Rose, and Alan Leggett, an active patriot, as well as groups including Britain First and Patriot Alternative, have increasingly targeted hotels, live streaming their visits in a footage that shows activists intimidating residents. Smith wrote how women and girls are frightened to walk around the area of Rotherham Hotel at night, pushing the message that migrant men are a threat to white women, and even children are positioned as a threat. One Britain First post said a child at a hotel waving at the cameras was mocking them. Like, they're painting the picture with this. They paint the picture without the evidence. It was revealed that the individual charged with the Southport murders was a British-born teenager. The far-right narrative shifted to maintain Islamophobic focus. Robertson and others shared disinformation about Muslim men stabbing people in Stoke-on-Trent, giving new incisive reasons for the riots. Despite Staffordshire police confirming there had been no such stabbings, footage of so-called Muslim Defence League portrayed British towns as under attack. The claim that white Britain is under attack by Muslim men is then used to incite the far-right's ultimate goal, a genocidal civil war, otherwise known as Day X. The network nature of modern far-right means that rather than coalescing around a physical leader, they instead organise around a shared ideology and aim, the great replacement conspiracy theory, which can be defeated via a race war. Yeah, this stupid conspiracy theory, they believe that that Muslims and everyone that's non-white is going to get all the whites are going to get wiped out of Britain. They're going to take it over. Okay, sure. The theory's baseless claims that white people in the global north are being replaced by migrant people in the global south, aided by feminists repressing the birth rate via abortion and contraception. All of this supposedly being orchestrated by cultural Marxists, a catch-all term that includes liberal elites, feminists, Black Lives Matter activists, LGBTQ+ people, and Jewish people. This so-called replacement theory is commonly referred to as white genocide. To defeat this so-called genocide, the far right wants to incite a civil war, sometimes referred to as a Day X or boogaloo, which will result in pure ethno-states. For this reason, the owner of X, formerly Twitter, Elon Musk, warns that civil war is inevitable in the UK in the wake of the riots. While it is far from inevitable, it is the desired outcome for the global far right, who are looking for an incitement incident to trigger Day X. Well, there's just one tiny little problem with this, or with this whole great replacement theory and whatnot. These people are the minority. The vast majority of Britons in the UK, as well as lots of white people like myself, don't buy into this nonsense. It's not true. There is no evidence to suggest this kind of thing. And you shouldn't buy into this, guys. You shouldn't. When the white men in England are dragging Asian men out of cars and shouts of kill them, and when white gangs are setting fire to hotels, housing families in various countries across the global south, they are rehearsing the actions that would take during the things they fantasize about, genocide. When white men attack mosques, they are rehearsing a cultural genocide. This is not going to fix anything. The central replacement white genocide theory is supplemented by secondary conspiracies designed to provide anxieties that children are in danger and that parental authority is being surplused by outside hostile others. Those attending the riots had written with Save the Children and Save Our Children, the same slogans that appear at anti-vax protests and anti-drag queen protests, while seamlessly a vegan slogan. Who doesn't want to save children? The message now invokes the far-right QAnon conspiracy theory claiming liberal elites are trafficking and torturing children at Stagate rituals in order to harvest adrenochrome. What? 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 The demands to save the children feeds directly into overaching Great Replacement conspiracy theory. A hostage, the message reads, is coming to take your children away. Children on the front line against replacement. To prevent white genocide, men are told that it is their duty to defend their family, to defend whiteness through violence. The desired outcome of this violence is to create insecurity, fear, and anxiety in the general population, which in turn leads to a collapse in faith in democracy and society. As this is happening now, less than a month into a Labour government, this has been calmed as far as I'm aware. It's important to note Labour have already cancelled the Rwanda scheme and implemented a statutory instrument to start processing asylum claims that were in a backlog as a result of the rule changes in the Illegal Migration Act. Though the party, which has a long history of counting anti-immigrant support, is also acting tough on immigration, with raids on businesses and deportation flights to Vietnam and Timor Leste. Labour is the traditional enemy of the far right. He is associated with progressive values, multiculturalism, and woke. For the far right to achieve its aims, it has to destroy the electoral trust in the Labour Party, in government, and in democracy. And in many ways, the far right is grooming the general public to believe the violence and disorder of the past week and any future violence is an inevitable consequence of political failure and around immigration. Worse, it is a result of a failure of democracy. This is what they want to do. Every single time something happens, something big happens, they want to point the finger in any ways on immigrants, on Muslims, or migrants. Any kind of incidents that take place, they will amplify it. That's why, following Prime Minister Keir Starmer's intervention last Sunday night, where he condemned the far-right thuggery, social media filled up a message that he was a traitor to his country, a Soros puppet, an anti-Semitic trope, running a rational government. The former actor and failed politician Lawrence Fox called Starmer a traitor, writing that he's on the side of immigrant barbarians who rape British girls. He finished the tweet with a threat of violence. Fine, it's a war. His tweet echoes Musk's civil war is inevitable. Well, right there, he's incentivizing war there. So Lawrence Fox should be arrested just for that tweet. Is that not incentivizing violence? He is saying that it's war. He's incentivizing violence. Following the Southport riots, Reform UK Nigel Farage put out a video where he claimed that the violence was a reaction to fear, discomfort, and to unease. I'm worried not just about the events in Southport, but about social decline that is happening in our country. This Prime Minister does not have a clue. We need to start getting tough, because what you've not seen on the streets of Hartlepool, London, or Southport is nothing what could have happened over the next few weeks. In his video, Farage hints at a far-right trope of Western decline. An offshoot of the Great Replacement theory, he argues that the government is failing to protect its people. More importantly, he suggests that if the government fails to get a clue, it will get worse. The violence, fear, and disorder will increase, and then what will happen? What happens when violence leads to people no longer trusting the state? This is part of a modern far-right strategy. If the state cannot protect us from the inevitable violence, it says, then the far-right strongman can, sowing fears, anxiety, and distrust in social norms, allows the far-right to achieve its ultimate aim, to replace the democracy with a strongman authoritarian leader who can rule on war footing. This is the lesson of the 1930s. It's one we cannot afford to forget in the 2020s. The difference between the 1930s and the 2020s, the one biggest difference, is we didn't have social media back then. And social media is playing a massive part in all of this. That is for sure. It's very scary, actually, when you read this piece by the Open Democracy, when you think about it. The so-called Great Replacement theory. This crazy idea. It's incredibly scary. Obviously, this will not be the last time I talk about the riots, guys. It will not, I'm sure, but people have just, I understand people have problems in their lives, but people should not turn to conspiracy theories and bogus claims that will fix your problems. They're not going to fix your problems. They're not going to fix your lives. They're not going to make people better. Are there bad immigrants? Of course there are. Are there bad Muslims? Of course there are. But there are also a lot of bad white people as well. A lot of bad black people, a lot of bad Asian people, but there are also good Asian people. There are also good black people. There are good and bad in all of us. And one thing that we are all is human beings with emotions and feelings, and some of us are more sensible than others. And people should not be buying into this mindset. They really should not. It's very dangerous to have these kind of ideas in their head. And it's not going to help anyone anywhere, guys. Really, really is not. So, guys, before I get to the last article, guys, which is from Byline Times, if you can financially support me in any way, shape or form, it would be greatly appreciated. I don't know if I'm going to be able to monetize this video based on some of the things that I've covered, but if you want to financially support me, leaving a super chat makes a big difference. Any gifted memberships is also greatly appreciated, or maybe yourself wanted to find another ways to financially support me. Being a YouTube member, you can be one for as little as 99p, gets you access to custom emojis of the gang that I have behind me here. That's these lot here who have been here watching along for quite a while here. Of Ollie, Pingu and Cash Dummy. They are the observers. And there is the lava lamp and the orb, which is always empowered. That empowers the channel. So the orb is what empowers the channel in all of its glory. And the lava lamp there as well. So you get emojis of them. Also, obviously, whenever you comment on any of my videos as a YouTube member, I always respond back as well. Sometimes it takes a couple of days or a bit longer, but I do respond to all my comments. I do read all my comments as well, even the ones that are threatening my life as well, believe it or not. But if you are a YouTube member, any comments you make on my channel, obviously I will respond whenever I possibly can. So thanks to anyone and everyone who is a YouTube member. If you're a $2.99 member, which is the next level up, you get early access to my content. So as soon as I finish content and upload it and it's all fine, it becomes available to you as a member instantly, whereas other people will have to wait until the scheduled time slot day comes out. Other ways you can financially support me as well is by buying me a coffee. Link is in the description if you want to buy me a coffee that way. The link's there for it. I get a bigger cut than I do there, than I do off YouTube. Another way you can financially support me is by joining my Patreon for a small amount. But unlike some other people's Patreons, you get content on there, exclusive content on Patreon, as opposed to just joining the Patreon in some other places. You actually get something back as well for being a part of the Patreon community. So do check out the Patreon as well. Links for all of that stuff is in the description, and thanks to anyone and everyone who has done so. Luckily, reminder as well that if you can't afford to financially support me, hitting the like button, sharing across social media, subscribing, watching the videos a bit longer, all that stuff definitely helps the channel. So thank you to everyone who does that as well. It is appreciated. The final story I have for you guys is from Byline Times. New analysis shows just how big of a failure Boris Johnson's levelling up agenda really was. The poorest in regions in England have seen living standards plummet and inequalities widen. Yeah, the whole premise of Prime Minister Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, his whole idea and premise was that all of this whole levelling up thing, you know, we kept hearing about how he was going to level up the country, get things going, get Britain going, all that kind of stuff, guys. Nobody got it. Nobody got it. Nobody felt it. It was just absolute, complete and total tosh from him. It was a pack of lies. And he started the catalyst, in my opinion, the real distrust between politicians and the public. Out of all the politicians, he was the one that started it after Theresa May. Don't get me wrong, Theresa May was problematic. I'm not saying that. But Boris Johnson, for me, was the big one. He was the one that really broke the trust of the British public. You know, his handling of COVID, making big promises to build 40 new hospitals, which he never did as well. You know, saying anything just to win appeasement, this man. He really let a lot of people down. I mean, there's arguments that people say that he is directly responsible for many of the lives lost in COVID and should face some kind of criminal sanctions for them, but we know he's not going to, guys. This guy partied while people died as well during COVID. It's important to remember that as well. So let me make sure I got the right one. Yeah, I do. So in 2022, Boris Johnson's government laid out a vision to narrow the disparities of wealth, health and power between the regions of the United Kingdom by 2030. They were fine words indeed. New research has now shown that this mission has so far failed miserably. Most parts of the UK have actually been going backwards relative to London and the South East since Boris Johnson was elected in 2019. According to the new analysis from the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, the NIESR, while some progress has been made in such areas as digital connectivity and crime reduction, critical areas like pay, employment, production, education and housing has seen little to no improvement. Worse still, for hopes of levelling up, a phase that has now been ditched by Keir Starmer's government, there has been a mark of deterioration in school education standards and housing conditions in some parts of the UK between 2019 and 2023. A central goal has been to close the gap in pay between the affluent areas like London and the South East and poorer regions such as the North East. But regional pay disparities remain largely unchanged despite some increases in the official national living wage. In reality, the minimum wage benefiting low-wage earners, the broader objective of reducing overall regional inequalities has not been met. Living standards in the poorest part of the country have worsened significantly more than in more affluent areas, and since 2019, the overall living standards have dropped by an average of 7 to 8% in the UK, with the bottom decade experiencing a dramatic 20% decline. In contrast, the top income decludes the richest 10%, only saw a 3% hit. Living standards are defined by households' real disposable income, a metric known as EHRDI, which accounts for the makeup of households and housing costs as well as other factors. The divine is the most relevant when comparing different regions. For example, the gap in living standards between London and the North East has widened from £4,600 a year per household in 2019 and 2020 to £7,300 in 2023 and 2024. That's an increase in the living standards divide between the North East and London during the levelling up years of around 50%. Similarly, the gap between London and the Northwest grew from 2,900 to 5,400. But the gap between living standards in London and Yorkshire and the Humber was the most stark, rising at a time from £2,000 a year to £6,000. Again, that decline in living standards is not uniformly distributed. The poorest 20% of the population concentrated in the most deprived areas. The project has not seen a return to pre-pandemic living standards before April 2028. Housing, another critical area under levelling up missions, has seen a sharp decline in both supply and affordability since 2019. The deterioration is more acute in the South East and other southern regions, Yorkshire, the Humber, as well as cities like Belfast and Glasgow. Conversely, marginal improvements were observed as part of Wales and Cornwall through these exceptions rather than the norm. Primary school education standards have also deteriorated across the region, with the educational disruption caused by the pandemic having a lasting impact, with only Scotland showing some resilience against the downward trend. The pandemic years did not hit everywhere equally, and Britain is a long way from reducing regional disparities. The government has inherited a legacy of low GDP growth, flatlining productivity, declining living standards and crumbling public service, while the vision of levelling up was a generational task. The immediate failures and persistence of inequality underscore the need for more robust, sustained and inclusive approach to regional regeneration. NIESR argues that the decline in educational standards poses a long-term threat to the prospects of regional regeneration, since education is so foundational for future economies and social mobility. The findings from the NIESR briefings over a sobering review of not just the levelling up agenda, but Labour's physical inheritance from the Conservatives, something which will be music to the ears of Labour HQ. The UK faces 4 long-term economic problems: a low trend of productivity growth, a limited physical framework, an old and new Chancellor's strict physical rules, declining living standards from the least well-off, and persistent regional inequality. UK productivity growth has fallen relatively to the OECD's average since the financial crisis in 2008 and is now towards the bottom of the pack. Business investment in the UK is 10 percentage points of GDP lower than the OECD's average, and taxes as a percentage of GDP are at their highest since 1950. The poorest households are 21% worse off relatively to the pre-pandemic year of 2019. This is really bad. That's really, really bad. And a few points that Labour will not like to hear: inflation is expected to rise over the coming year and then falling back slowly towards target. NIESR also predicts that the Bank of England will reduce interest rates much more slowly than the market expects. And meanwhile, public investment needs to increase to 4 to 5% of GDP to address the regional disparities, requiring a rethink of physical rules. Labour's plans do not allow for this level of public investment, i.e. infrastructure and other long-term capital projects. As the NIESR report notes, the new government has inherited not just low GDP growth, flatline productivity, lower living standards, crumbling infrastructure and poor public service, but also persistent regional inequalities. The overall prognosis is one of stunned recovery from a series of major economic shocks, starting with Brexit and the COVID pandemic. Now for a hopeful part. While the authors are clear that genuine boosting living standards outside the capital will require major public investment in infrastructure and good jobs, devolution has a big role to play in empowering England's regions to invest in the long-term decisions. But, and unlike the begging bowl, approach to the last government, pushing competitive parts of the country's pitch for poor pots of money from Whitehall, Keir Starmer's government said it is serious about actually devolving power. In short, there is a lot of stakes in the English devolution bill when Parliament returns in September. This is a great piece by great reportage piece by Byline Times here. But it's also a really sad and damning one. A reminder of just how bad things are at the moment, guys. And this is all because of these 14 years of these guys taking things apart, ripping them apart, really making things worse off for people. That's what they have done. They have made people worse off as a result of their actions. It's going to take a long time, and some things may never recover. Obviously, Brexit plays a part in all of this as well, which was not mentioned in this as well. I think that's an important point as well. I wonder why it wasn't mentioned. But yeah, all these problems, guys, it's going to take a long time for us to get anywhere near back on our feet again. But we need to deal with the for me, the crisis for me is the cost of living crisis, getting money in people's pockets, and helping the most poorest in society get back on their feet. I think is another thing. Yes, there are lots of crises, but that's one of many challenges that the Labour government needs to face up to, guys. And with that being said, guys, we have reached the end of Regan's Newsround. What did you guys think of some of the topics we discussed today? There's quite a few we covered there. We did cover quite an extensive couple of bits on the London riots as well. We also covered the ditching of the two-child benefit cap. Give me a bit more feedback on the one of what the Chancellor was saying about a Canadian-style pension scheme. Let me know your guys' thoughts on that. Obviously, covering that looks like they're going to be cost-cutting in the military budget, from an exclusive from the Eye as well. And obviously what we've just covered here, this reportage from Byline Times, as well as things around the London riots, around the UK riots as well, specifically England riots, shall we call them, for what they are, because there's not really been anything in, well, actually, I guess you can call it UK, because there was some in Belfast and Northern Ireland as well, so I think we have to say that, to be fair. But let me know your thoughts about all these things and more down in the comments section below, guys. Before I head out, just finally, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe if you haven't, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or you can join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.